Whew. 400 episodes and 33,000+ subscribers later.
Excellent!
Welcome back to Poor Boys RC, everybody, and happy Saturday to each and every one of you guys watching at home, on your phones, taking a poop, wherever you may be in this crazy world. Today's going to be a bit of a different episode. It's a very special episode to me, and I wanted to share with you guys. We're not only going to discuss my top 5 favorite Tamiyas of all time, but I also wanted to take a moment and celebrate the fact that this was supposed to be video number 400. It's video like 403, 404, something like that now, but the point is that we're here to celebrate a milestone, 400 videos and 33,000 subs later. Whew, it has been a journey getting here. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit with you guys today. Talk about where Poor Boys started, why it's called Poor Boys, how we got here, everything else in between, and mention my top 5 Tamiyas at the same time. So real quick, a little backstory on how Poor Boys RC got the name Poor Boys RC. It's in my YouTube bio, and I think it's an important name. I've had a lot of people give me the comment, if you've got that many RCs behind you, you're not a poor boy. Well, guess what? No, I'm not poor, and no, I'm not a boy. You're right on both fronts. But the name financially secure, balding, middle-aged man was already taken, so I stuck with Poor Boys RC instead. It's an homage to the 80s and 90s, the days when a lot of us were poor boys, and we would look at Tamiya catalogs, and a lot of us, myself included, couldn't even come close to affording a Tamiya or a Kyosho that was available at that time. We were lucky to get like a Sears car or a Radio Shack car, something like that. Times were really tough back in those days. I'm a first-generation Canadian. My family emigrated here from Croatia in the 70s. They barely spoke the language. They were uneducated. Let's just say money was pretty tight. So back in those days, being a poor boy, I had a lot of friends that had really cool RC cars. One of my best friends, still one of my best friends today, back in those days had a Tamiya Monster Beetle. And I'll tell you, it was just crazy watching the Monster Beetle tear around. The big 1/10 scale, the knobby tires, the 27-turn motor, the big 7.2 volt nickel metal hydride battery pack. Those were all huge power plants. They made cars fast. You know, you gotta take yourself back in time about 35 years or so. But these cars just had power and they had this design. They looked cool. They had big suspension that worked on them. Back in those days, I'd be lucky to get my hands on like a Sears Nico Lobo or one of, you know, those goofy things with the big wings on the back, little 16 scale things that ran on AA batteries. That's what I was lucky to get my hands on. So it was always a bit of a dream to be able to have and to be able to experience a lot of these amazing Tamiya and Kyosho cars that I saw in the magazines back in the day. Becoming a YouTuber was never something you would think about as a kid or when you're in college. I mean, YouTube didn't really even exist back then. So let's take a pause right there and let's talk about the number 5 Tamiya kit that is in the list today. My number 5 pick is a Tamiya Terra Scorch. I love this 4-wheel drive buggy. I think it's important to note that this is also part of kind of a family of buggies. There's the Thunder Dragon, the Thundershot, the Fire Dragon, the Saint Dragon. I think there may even be others. Again, you got to take yourself back in time. This cab forward design was virtually unseen back in the days when this was released. Everything in the 80s and 90s was cab back. So as this cab started to move forward and they stretched this platform out and they put this big wing on the back, this was a very, very futuristic design back in the day. Add to that full 4-wheel drive, full 4-wheel independent suspension, oil-filled shocks on all 4 corners. I've got a Holmes Hobbies Retro Sport in here. But before that, I had a Spectrum Firma brushless setup in here. I actually made an entire running video. I'll throw a link down below so you guys can watch it later on. This thing can handle a modern brushless system all day long. There's something to be said about that. With such an antiquated design, it can still handle big power, it's got great looks, and it performs surprisingly well. The Terra Scorcher outperformed some of its brothers and cousins in the Scorcher and Dragon family due to the fact that it had 4 shocks instead of 3. Some of them had a monoshock in the front. It also has adjustable toe and camber, and it even has sway bars. That was a big deal back in the day. Add up all those design elements and you've got yourself one really awesome looking and performing vintage RC. The back end looks so cool with everything just kind of open and exposed like this. You've got a ton of suspension travel with it. The front end looks super mean as well. Again, a ton of suspension travel and a lot of adjustments you can make as well. The body comes off with just the one body clip. And if I slide this driver figure out of the way, underneath you can see a lot of cool stuff. We've got this coat hanger style drive shaft or prop shaft that takes the power from the front to the back or back to the front. I've got my Hobbywing 1060 ESC in here, my receiver. All in all, the Tamiya Terra Scorcher is just a wonderful looking, wonderful performing, state-of-the-art looking buggy from back in the day that comes in at number 5 on my list. So a question I get asked often is, what made you get into YouTube? Back in about 2015, 2016, I think, I found a channel called Mateo's RC Movies. Back in those days, I wasn't really that into collecting. In fact, I had virtually no collection. I only had about 4 RCs, I think. 3 of them were race rigs, and I had a Midnight Pumpkin. But I used to watch Mateo's RC Movies, and that got me very excited. It really sort of opened up the door in my brain into thinking of like, man, like these videos that this guy makes are so cool. If you've never watched a Mateo movie before, you really have to. I'll throw a link down below in the description box so you can find him easily. He doesn't make videos anymore, but I think a lot of us know who he is, and a lot of us would agree that he kind of was the gold standard of scale RC, realistic kind of cinematic style movie making. Watching Mateo do it and make it look so easy, I thought to myself, well, I can do that. Guys, my first videos sucked. My first 100 videos, they're absolutely terrible. The audio's awful, the lighting's terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. And back in those days, YouTube, like the bar was a lot lower, I'll say. And I remember having the thought in my head, it's got to be easy, right? It is not easy. It's not for everybody. So Mateo, if you're watching, I owe it to you for getting me into this hobby, into this end of the hobby, I should say, into this YouTube world. Thanks so much, brother. You really are the best. And guys, if you haven't watched his videos, make sure you do. All right, with that out of the way, let's go to the number 4 car on my list, and that's going to be the Tamiya Monster Beetle. I think you can tell the ones that are going to end up on the list because they're the ones that have the most destroyed bodies. Like I've got a broken fender back here that I tried gluing and then broke it off again. The body's busted here. It's scratched to heck. Side mirrors are broken off. Tires are half worn out. As I mentioned at the start of the video, one of my best friends growing up had the Monster Beetle. This is one of the first Tamiya RC cars I ever saw in person. Remember guys, 40 years ago, you would see these in magazines and catalogs. There wasn't a Tamiya store that sold these. There weren't hobby shops around every street corner that sold these. They were rare to see in person back then. This is the first 10 scale monster truck I ever saw. It was screaming fast. I mean, obviously it looked amazing. These tires were like a kid in the early 80s, mid 80s has never seen tires like this before. Add to that with a big 27 megahertz radio, the kind of range you would get. My friend Stefan used to rip his all around the parking lot. I'll never forget it. So the Monster Beetle always had that kind of special spot in my heart for many nostalgic reasons. But once you get a Monster Beetle, then you start to really understand why they're so awesome. I mean, guys, just look at this thing. Look at this stance, the lay down shocks in the back. You just didn't see that before. The big spiked tires with the chevrons. Look at the big front suspension. Again, you just didn't see big suspension like this back in those days, guys. This one is all modded up. In the back, you see I've got a Tamiya Super Stock BZ motor, which I think is the perfect motor for this thing. I've also upgraded my rear dog bones to the frog-style dog bones, and I've got an MIP ball diff in the back. And look at this thing. It's still packed with sand from the last time I took it out. It's not even properly cleaned yet. Couple body pins to take out, and then we get into this wacky ORV-style chassis. Now, right away, you guys are probably looking at this and saying, hey, hang on, Phil, that's not a stock chassis. And no, it is not. This is an all-aluminum chassis you can find on eBay. These are absolutely gorgeous. They're works of art, really. But we do still have some of the stock Monster Beetle elements in here. Really interesting gearbox. It's just sort of a vertical gearbox. It is known to have some issues. If you put too much power in it, you're going to hear some clacking kind of a sound. And that's the differential stressing out these differential plates, making them flex outwards and cause grinding with your gears. But I've got my receiver in here barely hanging on by a piece of tape. Guys, look at this thing. It's a mess. It's always ridden hard and put away wet. And it's absolutely a ton of fun. And the Monster Beetle came on a chassis called the ORV chassis, the off-road vehicle chassis. And it comes in a number of different formats. When it comes to the big tire formats, you've got the Monster Beetle, you've got the Blackfoot, you've got the Mud Blaster. I don't know, there may even be more. And then it switches to small tire formats like the Tamiya Frog, the Brat, and I'm sure I'm forgetting others too. At the end of the day, the Monster Beetle and all the other vehicles that are on the ORV platform are still loved by Tamiya and hobby enthusiasts all over the world. You can't go wrong with one of these bad boys. And since we're on the topic of ORVs, I thought I'd show off my Subaru Brat. This is a re-release. Obviously, you can tell by the bright blue body, but this is one of the small tire variants of that exact same chassis. Very unique with the 2 rear kind of trailing arms in the back. These are just great cars. They look awesome. They are so fun to drive. And with the smaller tires, they're not quite as hard on the gearbox, so you can get away with running them stock, not having to upgrade to the MIP ball diff. A lot of people have asked me what I did for a living before I got into YouTube. I worked with some of the largest, in fact, the largest auto body repair chain in North America for a number of years, and I had a really great career there. But unfortunately, in 2018, I was involved in a car accident that caused a lot of damage to my neck. Fast forward to 2023, and I had a major injury with my low back. That was also the eye-opener. Being in my mid-40s at the time, I had to make a decision with my life and say, what do I want to be when I grow up? But now's the time to do something that I loved, something that I just have nothing but raw passion for, and try and build it into something out of nothing. That's why we're here today, guys. I never thought in a million years that that thing would be being an RC YouTuber. They say it's not uncommon for people to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 careers in their lifetime now. I guess this is me going on to career number 3. With that said, guys, it is time to talk about the number 3 car on the list. And my number 3 Tamiya pick of all time is the Tamiya Hotshot. Why the Hotshot, you may ask? Well, look at this thing. Monoshocks, baby. Monoshock in the back, monoshock in the front. This thing just screams 1980s. Again, this Hotshot, if you look at it, guys, it is still packed full of sand everywhere. This roof panel is absolutely demolished. It is dented and beat. My stickers are all torn up everywhere. I have put a lot of miles on this Hotshot, guys. This guy's rocking a 10-turn brushless motor. Obviously, the design looks incredible. This thing just looks great. But the front monoshock is a huge highlight for me. I love this thing. I don't care about the wacky bump steer. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Look at that cool monoshock. It's even adjustable right here, but it usually gets gummed up with sand, and yeah, it doesn't move. But if it wasn't gummed up with sand, this would open up and you can actually adjust your preload on the monoshock. Speaking of monoshocks, yep, there's one in the back there too. Where is it, you may ask? It is right there. Look at that thing. That is wacky. And look at the way it works. There are these little cams down here on the bottom of the lower control arms. As your suspension compresses, it pushes this piston up, which then compresses the monoshock in the rear. What a cool design. But back in the 80s and 90s, most RC cars came with a rectangular resistor. The Hotshot was different. These were actually functional round resistors, so they look super cool. They're mounted in a really smart place to get a lot of airflow over them to keep them cool and away from your battery pack so you don't burn your fingers. You know, with it tucked down, it just looks so mean. I've got mine jacked up because it's always in the sand. The Hotshot was so popular, it actually started a family of Hotshots. There's the Hotshot 2, the Super Shot, and the Hotshot 2 Blockhead Motors Edition. This is my Hotshot 2 Blockhead Motors Edition, which is virtually identical to the Hotshot 2, just a slightly different livery. It's obviously got the Blockhead Motors livery. The big difference here, guys, is the rear suspension. Gone is the one monoshock, and here we've got 2 shocks, 1 per tire. And the CVAs are a little different. They don't have that little cam on there that would adjust the preload. Some other design elements as well. The roof's a little higher, but I just want to show you guys the Hotshot 2. This thing is just fantastic. The Super Shot took this design to the next level and actually had 4 shocks. So you'd have 2 shocks in the front, 2 shocks in the back, and it was considered the most race-worthy of all the Hotshot family. So as my RC collection grows, so does the channel. They seem to be just in sync with one another. And now that the channel surpassed the 30,000 subscriber mark, we've unlocked a whole new phase of the YouTube interactive experience with viewers. Now we've got channel memberships available. If you guys want to become a member of the channel, again, I'll have a link down in the description box below, so it's super easy for you to get access to it. At this point, I've only got the 1 level set up, and it's only $5 a month. That qualifies you to be a wild stallion. When you become a channel member, that gives you access to cool emojis that I set up, and a few other perks as well. So if you enjoy the content that much and you want to become a Poor Boys RC channel member, click that button. Again, it helps support the channel a ton, and you get one of these cool emojis by your name. I think I set up 5 or 6 of them. And if you look at the emojis, they're actually kind of fun. I worked with all the different Tamiya models. The grasshopper, the hornet, the lunchbox, the pumpkin. I believe it goes monster beetle, falcon, boomerang, fox. And the final one is the Hulkster tearing off his t-shirt in the ring. You got to be around for like 5 years though to hit that Hulkster phase. So I'm curious, who's going to be the first Hulkster? So again, if you are enjoying the channel, guys, I do have a Patreon set up. I've got Buy Me a Coffee set up. We've got the merch store as well. It's in the bottom of every single one of our videos. You can go into that merch store. You can actually design your own clothes in there as well. There's a huge product line. You're not limited to just what you see in the boxes. You can actually go in the store. You can change colors of items. You can add items. You can put logos wherever you want to put your logos. It's pretty cool. It's a really versatile platform, so check that out. And now that we're doing a lot of live streams, we've even got super chat and super stickers available. So if you are enjoying a live stream and you do want to support the channel, every little bit really does add up and it really does count. I appreciate you guys supporting Poor Boys RC. You're the best. There's also affiliate links that you can use down there that don't cost you an extra cent, but they help throw a few bucks toward the channel as well. All of these small revenue streams all add up to help keep this channel going. So to everyone that does support, because so many of you guys do, thank you all so very much. And for everyone else considering it, I hope I made it easy for you guys to do it. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comment section below. Always happy to get back to you guys. All right, guys, with that out of the way, we got 2 more to go. What is my number 2 favorite Tamiya car of all time? Believe it or not, it's one I haven't even driven yet, the Avante. The Avante. I could just stare at this car all day, every day. This is not normal. This is the absolutely the sexiest RC car that exists on planet Earth, if you ask me. In my opinion, anyway, there is nothing nicer in the world of RC than the Tamiya Avante. So nice, in fact, that I can't even bring myself to drive it, guys. Look at that plastic under tray. Not a scratch on it. I painted it box art, but my way of making it a little unique was I put the paint on very thin, so it's kind of translucent. And I'm not sure if the camera's gonna pick that up or not. This side might be a bit better, actually, where you can see the motor through the side of the body just a little bit there. So it's got a bit of a translucent feel to it, but other than that, this thing is completely box stock, never been driven, and in my opinion, it's a piece of artwork. Building the Avante, building the Aggress, the Top Force Evo, I would say this is still the best of the 3 in my opinion, but building those cars, it's just a different process altogether. The parts are so gorgeous and everything goes together just so nicely. It is really the most enjoyable build experience I've ever had. And then just looking at it again, guys, I can't get enough of it. I just stare at it. I think you guys need a closer look at it too. I think the big thing you see right off the hop is these cam lock wheels. Well, you remove these 2 little tabs and then you unscrew the wheel, this hub like this, and this is actually your wheel lock nut. So that little guy unscrews just like that, and that's how you remove your wheel. And with that wheel removed, guys, just look at the front suspension, these gold shocks, these big, beefy, adjustable upper camber links, beautiful anodized knuckles up front. The suspension, it doesn't work the best. Not gonna lie to you. This geometry looks cool, not the most functional. We've got big, beefy, aggressive tread on these tires. Look at those spikes, guys. Bunch of ice cream cones stacked on there. If we go to the back, guys, we've got more of these adjustable links. Look how nice they look. This is a level that you just don't see in a lot of kits, especially Tamiya kits. Oh yeah, and we've got the adjustable wing decal right there, meaning yes, this insane angle to the wing can be adjusted. I've got mine jacked up because I just think it looks super rad. Let's pop off this body really quick, and guys, just have a look at that. It comes with a special motor, the Avante 2011 Special GT tuned. Look at that carbon fiber upper deck in there, guys. Just beautiful. Dual bell crank steering. Everything's riding on ball bearings. We got the driver, we got the steering servo tucked underneath there. Guys, what a beauty. Just an absolute 10 out of 10 when it comes to vintage Tamiya kits. Well, guys, the time has finally come to talk about my favorite Tamiya RC car of all time. But before we get to mine, I want to know what your favorite Tamiya RC cars are. Let me know in the comment section below. Maybe throw down your top 3. Let me know what they are and why. I'm always really curious to know. And it's funny how many times the reason is when I was a kid, my buddy had this, my dad had that, my uncle owned this one. It's amazing how much nostalgia we attach to these cars. No wonder they're selling so well, right? And speaking of selling really well, the next car is one that needs little to no introduction. I've said it in most of my videos, and in fact, it sold so well, it never needed to be reread. They just never stopped making them. The Tamiya Midnight Pumpkin. And you may be asking why I'm showing off 2 Midnight Pumpkins. Well, this is basically a stock Midnight Pumpkin, and this is a heavily modified Midnight Pumpkin. I've owned this one for about 15 years, believe it or not. So let's look at this one second, because it is extremely modified. Let's take a minute and appreciate the beauty of a stock Midnight Pumpkin. The only upgrade is the motor. Maybe I should have done some dusting before I filmed today. This one's just a shelfer that I have on display in the hallway upstairs here. We've got the green machine motor in the back. Just wanted to keep it vintage. I even have a vintage nickel metal hydride battery in there just for looks. Guys, the Midnight Pumpkin is my favorite to this day for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the main reasons is the fact that it was the first hobby grade RC car that I ever got. I think it was 1989 when I got mine. My best friend at the time, he and I stayed up all night putting it together, and I'll never forget the first time I hit the gas and this thing wheelied and just walked on 2 wheels all the way down the street. My little kid brain was blown away. We've got this 50s Ford inspired truck body that looks amazing. This is actually an original Midnight Pumpkin body as well. This isn't the re-release body. You can tell by the V8 on the grill there and the Ford badging on the tailgate. But this truck doesn't really perform well. It's kind of like a bag of potatoes with a motor in it. It's got friction shocks only, and the rear axle is what makes this thing act so wacky. It just bounces around a lot. It does this axle slap thing, and the rear suspension, let's just say it leaves a lot to be desired. But these gearboxes are bulletproof. They're super tough. You can put a lot of power in them, and they'll take a lot of abuse. Underneath, guys, look at this. Like the most simple, just a bathtub style chassis. And this gearbox was used in the Hornet and the Grasshopper, who knows where else, a ton of other places, Mitsubishi Montero, the Lunchbox. This is just a fun chassis. It never stops being fun. It's wacky. It's got a very short wheelbase. It's only a 1/12 scale. Very unpredictable, very poor handling, but amazing at wheelies. This one's undergone many upgrades and different iterations over the days, but let's take a closer look at what's going on here. And this one, obviously, I decided to paint orange because, well, pumpkins are orange. But this sucker is heavily upgraded. We can start by looking at the tires. These are not stock Tamiya Midnight Pumpkin tires, but I've got foams inside here because they're a very soft compound. As you can see, we have the chevron with the spike there. Very, very cool. Riding on some ball bearings as well. And then look how wide it is. I've got a crazy widening kit on here. You can see just inside there, the front ends have been widened. I believe that's 12 mils per side. I've got a UK Monsters front end suspension on it. You can see that nice aluminum C-hub there. And what that does is helps correct your front suspension geometry. Over in the back end here, guys, again, we've widened it out in the back. You can see those hub extenders outside in the back there. We've got the big option #1 wheelie bar. We've got some nice Injora shocks here that work pretty good. They feel a little rigid, haven't been used in a while. We're rocking the 12-turn Leopard RC 3300 kV brushless motor. And all of you keen viewers will notice that I do not have that little plate between the motor and the gearbox, meaning that I am running the, I believe it's an 18-tooth pinion in here as well. So this thing's an absolute missile. And just like the ORV chassis we saw before, here we have a very nice upgraded aluminum eBay chassis. I've got the wheelbase extension kit right here that's 3D printed. I've added some weights to the back of the chassis here to help give it a little bit of that unsprung weight to get that back end moving a little bit. We've got a Leopard RC brushless ESC in here, a beefy 25 kg steering servo. Guys, this is just like the ultimate Midnight Pumpkin. This thing is fast. It handles as well as a pumpkin's ever going to handle. But the best part about it is it's just nonstop smiles. It's just nonstop fun. It'll still wheelie like crazy for days, bounce around, do crazy things. We do have some more pumpkin content coming up with some really, really tasty upgrades. Guys, thanks so much for sticking around today. This is a bit of a longer video, something a bit different, and I appreciate you guys hanging out this long. And if you guys feel this video earned it, if you give it a thumbs up, I totally appreciate it. 400 videos down, 400 more to come. Thank you guys so much for watching Poor Boys RC. As always, be excellent to each other.